President Trump says it's highly unlikely he will fire Fed Chairman Powell. But if the president, in fact, did want to remove Powell from his position, what would the process look like? Joining us with more on that, Jonathan Cantor, former Assistant Attorney General in the Biden administration. He's also a CNBC contributor, and our senior economics reporter, Steve Leisman. Jonathan, I would say, well, he said he's not going to do it, but about a month or two ago, there was some conjecture, and he said he wasn't going to do it. Then, if you hold up a letter that says this is asking for his resignation, what do you guys think? So just saying that it's unlikely that I would do it doesn't mean that a week from now he's not going to, again, start threatening. Is it possible? Since with that in mind, otherwise, why are we talking about it if he says he's not going to do it? But with that in mind, that he could change his mind, again, what would it take? Is it possible?
Yeah, it's possible. So he's certainly laying the groundwork by suggesting that these cost overruns at the Fed headquarters and the construction projects are a basis to remove the chairman for cause, meaning neglect, abuse, malfeasance. It's a very high bar legally, but there also haven't been really any historical precedents for it. So it would get litigated in court. Probably be quite a bit of a circus. But yeah, the standard is very high. It has to be for cause, and it has to be for neglect, malfeasance, abuse. Would
Chair Powell stay in the position until it was settled, and would it take longer than May or whatever it is that he's going to leave anyway?
Well, that's exactly right. So the expectation is that the chairman would sue and ask the court to stay the firing because it was illegal based on the statute. And that would result in two processes. First, there would be a dispute in court about whether the president has unlimited authority to fire the chair. That would quickly go up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has signaled it would likely side with the Fed chair. It views the Fed as historically different than other independent agencies. And then it would kick the case right back down to a district court, which would determine whether the president had a basis to fire the Fed chair.
Steve, for some reason, I think people assume it's taxpayer money that's being used to build, or what is it, a remodel or something, or a
renovation?
Renovation.
Renovation is the word.
But it's not taxpayer money, is it?
Well, it's sort of the Fed's money, and to the extent that the Fed has extra money, it goes back to the taxpayer in this thing they call seniorage. So to the extent the Fed has less money to give back, it ends up being, I guess, not taxpayer money. It could have been, I guess, is the way to put it. But you know, my understanding of this thing, Joe, is it is something where they dug underneath the building and found lead contamination. I was talking to somebody yesterday. They had to raise up the building, literally raise it up to get stuff out of it. And these are historic heritage buildings. So, and by the way, every single, I think the members of the board of governors all voted for what's going on. So I think what we're talking about here, Joe, and I don't think you have any disagreement with this idea, is essentially pretext, right? And maybe John wants to weigh in on this, but one of the important things here is the president's own prior comments are part, I would imagine, of Powell's defense. In other words, he comes forward and says, this issue is not an issue at all. This is a made-up issue. And he has the president's own comments where he said, I got to get rid of Powell because of the idea that his rates are too high because he's costing the government money. So all those comments, and there was a case where the president's own words ended up hurting him in another case where it was shown to be pretext.
That's
John,
exactly right.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Powell will say it's pretext. And what the court can do is hold an evidentiary hearing, meaning it can get internal documents, it can get public statements, and determine whether these cost overruns, which seem unlikely to satisfy the legal standard, are the actual basis for the firing, or whether it's a dispute over policy, in this case, interest rates. And the chairman would have a very strong legal case.
And obsessing about Fed independence. Steve, obsessing about Fed independence causes the Fed to be less independent because lowering rates is almost taken off the table because it would look like the Fed was folding to pressure from the executive branch. So in its own perverse way.
It's interesting you say that, Joe, because I'm looking at the September Fed fund futures, if my data is correct, down to 57%. So the market backing away from that. But there's another idea worth talking about, Joe, and that's the extent. You got Kevin Warsh coming up. It's the extent to which Powell may have been helping Trump. We keep talking about how all the tariffs are not showing up. Maybe it's tough Fed policy. If you look at, for example, inflation expectations, while these tariffs are in place, they've been pretty well behaved, essentially, over the last, on the 1 and 5 year horizons. And look at what Kevin Warsh said. I know he's coming up at 8 o'clock. This is from his January editorial in the Wall Street Journal op-ed. He says, it's the Fed's duty designated by Congress to ensure that changes in relative prices don't become embedded in the economy. The Fed's job is to stop second-order effects of price changes. And who has adopted this whole attitude of Kevin Warsh, which is, by the way, essentially religion in the central bank community? Jay Powell to Congress on June 24th said, our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to prevent a one-time increase in the price level from becoming an ongoing inflation problem. That's exactly what he's doing. So I'm not sure that the president really has a beef when it comes to policy. His tariffs are coming through. There is inflation related to it, but it's not runaway inflation.
You know, who knows with the president sometimes. I don't know whether it's three-dimensional chess or sometimes I think, he's got a horseshoe in his pocket or something, but he can, if we do have a slowdown, he can say, see, I mean, he's going to have that in his back pocket to talk about. Right. That I was telling you that's going to happen. But you're right. What we don't need probably right now, if you're worried about inflation, like the president doesn't want inflation. You don't need a rip-roaring economy from lower interest rates to put a bunch of additional pricing pressure, Jonathan, in addition to the tariffs, so that he could be doing the president a favor.
Absolutely. And I very much agree in terms of the whole scapegoat concept, notwithstanding the fact that he might be doing him a favor. There's a lot of history. Your previous guest was talking about it, but there are it seems like every president has a beef with the Fed chair. Yeah. It's Reagan, it's Eisenhower, Truman, Johnson, notably. And so, I think Trump is setting it up so that there's a sort of Damocles hanging over Powell's head throughout the rest of his tenure. And then second, if there is a sustained period of inflation or stagflation, Trump has the ability to say, well, it's this guy's fault because he didn't lower interest rates.
Steve, I was trying, or Jonathan, maybe one of you guys, there was some anecdote that was beyond the pale for one of the presidents that either he said something, I don't think it was, he didn't say it on Twitter.
Apparently he grabbed, one of the presidents grabbed a Fed chair and kind of like put it up against the wall. I think it was Johnson who did that. I have to go back and check my notes.
Johnson,
but it's worth pointing out, Joe,
physically, the senators and congressmen in the shins with his cowboy boots when he was trying to get a bill passed.
I'm feeling a book, Steve. I'm feeling a book. I mean, for you on things that have happened in the past between presidents and Fed chairs. Why wouldn't you?
Actually, a really good idea.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Quick,
well, you could do that, but I want to point out something much more clinical. I'm sorry to go away from that.
Too lazy.
Here's the thing. In 1935, when Congress passed this bill, the Federal Reserve Act, it left out the phrase, specifically, it considered and left out the idea that the president could fire the Fed chair, quote unquote, at will. They got rid of that. And I think one of the things that might happen if they end up having a discussion about what Congress intended and can the president fire the Fed chair, this 1935 track record on Congress saying, no, we don't want the president to fire the Fed chair at will, may be something that's relevant.